Josh Heupel and the Tennessee Volunteers are heading to the Swamp this week to face Billy Napier and the Florida Gators. It's been in the headlines a lot this week. Tennessee has not gone into the Swamp and won since 2003. Drew, do you think that this year's Tennessee team is talented enough to go in there and get it done?
Oh, I 100% believe that Tennessee's talented enough to go into the Swamp and get a win and get a big time win. But there has been a lot of concerns that have that have risen from the first couple weeks of the season for Tennessee, particularly last game against Austin Peay. This offense has got to find ways to hit on these explosive plays first and foremost. Particularly last game as well, there was a lot of times that Tennessee would have receivers wide open down the field, and Joe Milton would either overthrow it, and then you had receivers dropping passes. So it's a little bit of a mix of both. It's not just Joe Milton, it's not just the receivers, but they're just not clicking like you're used to seeing the Tennessee offense click when they had Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, and all those guys last year. Now, I'm not saying that's a time for panic and concern. It's early in the season. I think eventually that the offense is going to start gelling together, and it's going to absolutely have to this week if Tennessee wants to go on the road and get a win here. And this is a Florida team that obviously a lot of people, it's been fun to poke and laugh at Florida, especially after their week one loss on the road at Utah. But this Florida defense is going to be by far the best Tennessee has played all season. This defense is currently ranked number 3. Now, they have played Utah with a third and fourth string quarterback in McNeese State, so take that for what it's worth. But I do think just watching them, I think the Florida defense has taken a little bit of a step forward this year from the little bit I saw. Obviously, it's still kind of early to tell. But nonetheless, like I said, it's going to be the most talented defense Tennessee has seen. So no matter what, I mean, Joe Milton's going to have to make and capitalize these throws down the field and hit on these explosive plays if Tennessee wants to have a chance to win in this game. I think Tennessee's a much better team than Florida, but sometimes the best team doesn't always win. It's a big-time conference rival. Like you said, Tennessee hasn't gone into the Swamp and won since 2003. So, that's definitely going to play a role, and it's going to be on their minds. And the Swamp's not an easy place to play at. I mean, the fans there go crazy. That's a tough environment. And even if Florida's not the better team, just playing in the Swamp on the road at night, it's just not going to be an easy task. This is going to be a very difficult game for both teams. I think Tennessee's the better team, but like I said, the best team doesn't always win.
Yeah, you pointed out last week against Austin Peay, Tennessee's receivers were having a bad, issue with the drop balls. And also, like you mentioned, Joe Milton in both games has not been able to hit on the big explosive plays 10, 15, 20 yards down the field. Now, some of those are also drops, but whenever you're seeing a quarterback sitting back relaxed and still throwing over and behind receivers, that's a problem because it's not like his footwork and cadence is sped up in his head. He's not rushing things. He's sitting there calmly and still making bad throws. So as a Tennessee fan, that's very alarming to me. And also, you're 100% right about this Florida defense. They have improved, but the question marks going into this year was the defensive backs and the linebackers. And against Utah, I was seeing these linebackers still biting on the play action, wrong assignments in the passing game off bootlegs and sprint outs. And the middle of the field is going to be open in the intermediate passing game. Is Joe Milton going to be able to fit the ball through these windows and make big passes to, guys coming across the middle up the seam like Brew McCoy, who I expect to get a little bit more touches going into this Florida game. We haven't seen much of him yet. But transitioning to Florida here, whenever Billy Napier got the head coaching job, it was pretty obvious what they wanted to do. They wanted to run the football, okay? And they utilized the pistol to run a lot of different types of run plays and different run schemes. But against Utah in week one, they were not having success in running the ball. They abandoned the run game due to, being behind a couple scores early. And, Graham Mertz ended up going for 350 yards thanks to some playmakers on the outside. But that run game was abandoned. Without the run game, you're not going to be able to beat Tennessee. You have to run the ball and control the clock and keep Tennessee's offense off the field. Even though we do have Joe Milton and the offense is going to look a lot different this year, you still cannot let Heupel have the ball offensively. So is Florida going to be able to dominate the trenches? And one thing, they couldn't run the ball against Utah much because the O-line was not doing a good job in run blocking, and they did not do a good job protecting Graham Mertz. Week one, Tennessee had 6 sacks and 10 tackles for loss against Virginia. Okay, that front seven is coming, and they're playing hard. This Florida O-line is going to have to be able to keep that D-line off of them so they can establish the run game and set things up off of that. Because if that's not going to be the case, then Tennessee's going to go and score 40 points.
Yep. And this is a much different Florida team, obviously, with Graham Mertz back at quarterback instead of Anthony Richardson. And you're spot on. Florida's going to have to find a way to protect Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz is not a mobile quarterback in any way, shape, or form. In fact, he might be the least mobile quarterback in all of college football. The dude's literally a statue. Now, he can throw the ball if you give him time and time in the pocket. He can make some throws, but Tennessee, I'm expecting a lot of pressure from Tennessee in this game. A lot of pressure. I really like Tennessee's front seven. I really like Aaron Beasley. He's really fun to watch. He comes down, he flies to the football, and I'm sure he's going to be coming after Graham Mertz a good bit in this game. So Florida's going to have to find ways to run the football. If they can't run the football, Florida's in trouble. And the same can be said for Tennessee as well. Tennessee, I really like Jalen Wright. I think he's one of the best backs that Tennessee has right now, and he's averaging 9 yards a carry. So if Tennessee could find ways to run the football and get a lead early on, make sure they don't have to put Joe Milton in these obvious passing situations, I think Tennessee's set up really nicely on offense and could put up a lot of points. And Florida can't be playing from behind. If Florida ever in this game has to abandon the run and they're forcing Graham Mertz to throw and the offensive line's not protecting it, I think this could be a very, very, very long game for the Florida Gators. Tennessee's going to have to do everything in their power to get a lead early on. You got to get this crowd out of it. Once that crowd gets out of it, the game's going to become a lot easier. Players are going to start settling down. And I'm expecting a slow start for both teams in this game. This is going to be a game with a lot of energy. This is a big-time conference rival matchup, and it's at night. The energy in this game is going to be crazy. You can expect to see some nerves. But Joe Milton, as experienced as he is, as old as he is, he's been in these environments before. He's seen it. This is going to have to be the game where he steps up and his veteran skills and his attributes are going to have to take over in this game.
Yeah, you're right, Drew. Joe Milton's a veteran guy. He's been there for a while, and he's been a good leader in every facet of what it means, except leading by his performance. Go out there and make big plays and give the guys energy around you. Hype up your teammates around you by going out and making big plays, making big-time throws. But that leads into my prediction. And I mentioned it earlier, Florida's offensive line is going to have to be able to control Tennessee's defensive line and front seven. Tennessee runs man coverage upwards of 70% of the time last year. Okay, second was that's number one in the country. Second was Ohio State with like 30-something%. So that's over double what the number 2 man coverage team in the country runs. Okay, so we're going to run man and we're going to send pressure. So you're right. Florida has to be able to run the ball so they're not in second and longs, third and longs where they're going to have to throw the football and we can rear our ears back and send pressure. Offensively for Tennessee, last year, let's not forget, Heupel scored on his first drive in like 12 consecutive games. First quarter points was first in the country. Whenever Josh Heupel is going on his script, the plays that you're, coming up with the offensive meeting on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, those first 15, 20 plays, that's money for him, to come out of the game, to come out of halftime. So I expect them to stick to that script, whether they come out with the ball or, make a big stop and come out with and get the ball punted to them. I think they're going to come out and score in the first quarter and then keep the gas on. And I think that the Tennessee defense is going to be able to rear back and send pressure. And you mentioned it earlier, Aaron Beasley is going to be an all-conference player this year. We have our guys at defensive back that know how to play the type of scheme that our defensive coordinator wants to run. Man coverage, press corners, aggressive corners that we can put on an island and play with 9 in the box, okay, or 9, to assist in the run game pretty much. And so my prediction, I'm going to go 34-21 Tennessee. Or I'll say 34-20. I think that Florida's going to get down to the red zone a couple times because when you're running man, it's feast or famine. There's going to be big plays that you're going to give up. That's why the pressure is so important. It makes coverage easier on the back end. But when you're running a lot of man, it makes you susceptible to big plays. So I can see them getting some big plays, getting into the red zone. But Tennessee's red zone defense was, top in the country last year. I expect them to improve with that, just being a better defense. So 34-20 is my final prediction.
Yeah, and this is a Florida team that's a lot different on offense this year with Anthony Richardson not being back in the backfield. And if Tennessee loads the box and is able to stop the run, there's no threat of Graham Mertz taking off and keeping the ball and running for 20 or 30 yards along the edge. So that whole aspect of Florida's offense is just non-existent anymore. And this game's all going to come down to how the teams start. If, like you said, Josh Heupel can follow that script and Tennessee's able to hit on these explosive plays and get a lead early on, I just think it's very hard for this Florida offense to be able to play from behind. And I think Tennessee kind of feeds off of that. I think Tennessee get better, the more of a lead they have. And like I said, this is a kind of environment where if Tennessee has the lead early on, gets the crowd out of it, it's going to settle the players down. And this is just such a big game for Tennessee, and they absolutely cannot lose this game whatsoever. I'm expecting a lot of energy, and they have a lot of things to prove after the first couple weeks. They've heard the questions from not only Tennessee fans, but fans across the college football world. What you saw last week from Tennessee is not the Tennessee team that's there right now. And I expect a totally different Tennessee team to come out in this game and really make a point. And I just don't think Florida has it offensively to really pose much of a threat, even if their Florida defense does step up and make some stops. I just don't think Florida's offense is going to be able to make up for that. I think Tennessee does get the win here. The line's all over the place. I've seen 6.5, 7, 7.5. As of right now, as we're recording this, I saw 7.5. That's what you guys see in this video right now. I think Tennessee can cover that. Now, I don't think it's going to be one of those deals where Tennessee wins by 20 or 30 points like I initially predicted at the beginning of the year. But I do think Tennessee can cover the spread. I think it's going to be a close game in the first half, but I think it's going to be one of those deals where eventually Tennessee is just going to put the gas on. Florida's offense is going to stall out, and Tennessee is going to pull away. I think Tennessee wins this game by double digits. I think they win anywhere between the 10 and 14-point range. And I think Tennessee gets a big-time win on the road at Florida, making it the first win in the Swamp since 2003.